First thing, each one of the regions have been doing, and a lot of the regions have been at this for a while, but I think we're all beginning to understand this, and Dan's done a lot of work here for many years in his work in Chico. Work's been done here by the Sierra Business Council. How do we really understand what's happening inside an economy and the idea of economic clusters? And every region has its own concentrations of industries, and you can do economic analysis that begins to show you where you have concentrations. The interesting thing is, when you look across the state, again, every region has different industry strengths. Now, here you have industries that are in the rural area, you have industries that are related to resource industries, but you also have emerging industries in the service areas, tourism and others, and the same thing with the North Coast, the same thing. The Fresno area has done a tremendous amount of work, not only in agriculture, but they've identified the water cluster, the irrigation cluster. They've been working in that area for a number of years, developing strengths in that area. I was talking earlier today about Imperial County, some of the things they're doing down there with geothermal. The idea of trying to figure out how to build on your natural strengths. Now clearly, you can look at the technology industries of the Silicon Valley, but that's not only one type of cluster. So the first thing you do, and this is just a representation, but there's been quite a bit of work done on this, which is along the horizontal axis is growth and what's happening in industries, or on the vertical axis is concentration, which tells you where you are concentrated. And you could actually create a map for every region in terms of clusters. And here's the interesting thing. I just mentioned before the unemployment rate, 12%, and you'll see it in the newspaper tomorrow, you'll see jobs are declining. When you break it out by individual industry segment, there's a different story. We've lost about 500,000 jobs in construction, which really wiped us out. We're losing jobs in government. That's a big loser right now in terms of jobs. But if you look at other parts underneath that, healthcare, if you look at things related to professional services, when you look at different types of industries that are related to the Port of Los Angeles or tourism, they're moving in different directions. So it's not like one homogeneous thing. It has to be looked at in a much more specialized way. So first thing, industry clusters. The second thing, and this is very familiar to you because it goes back to the origins of the Sierra Business Council. But many other regions have adopted this sort of three-part approach, which is how do you connect your economic perspective to your social perspective to making sure that everything you do in terms of your physical infrastructure are connected. So in this particular model, which actually comes out of the Fresno work, the Fresno Business Council has been doing this work for a number of times, is that you can see that if you don't have regional strategies that are integrated across these dimensions, economic, human, physical, that you're not going to have an effective strategy. And it's really at that sort of middle spot that makes the difference. But you need to have coordinated leadership, you need to have political support, and you need to have engaged citizens. So the underlying principle of stewardship is taking on responsibility for your region, bringing the different parties together and developing an integrated strategy. Now, obviously this requires public-private partnerships. Government can't do it alone, private sector can't do it alone, community sector can't do it alone. So we really have to build these partnerships, and every one of these efforts within the stewardship network are in fact public-private partnerships. Now, here's an interesting question though. If each one of the regions are developing strategies that are appropriate to their different requirements, how do they relate to the state? This has been a big problem. Partly because in 2004, the legislature abolished and eliminated the California Trade and Commerce Agency. We're one of the only states in the entire state that does not have a statewide economic agency. We don't really have mechanisms for the regions to connect. We have essentially said to ourselves, both globally and domestically, we're really not ready to compete very effectively relative to other places. And some states have taken advantage to us, coming here and saying, we want your jobs. So one of the questions on the table is, how do the regions relate to the states? So the state's role, as far as the Stewardship Network's agenda is the state ought to be investing in the critical infrastructure as defined by the regions and working with the regions in terms of state-regional partnerships, bottom up.